Who dominates the world? Time? God. A poet who unites time and God? Sabevius is probably the most prominent writer and poet of 17th century. The title page of his poetry book was illustrated by the famous Flemish Baroque painter Rubens. Sabevius' poems mostly talk about the power of fate in man's life, and his ode to Telephus Lycus is precisely about fate, the games of fate. It tells us about how a man is merely a pitiful toy in the hands of fate. This motive continues on to nowadays. In the poem of Judita Vaičiūnaitė, The Drawing, is shown how two little girls play with a helpless doll, how fate plays with a helpless human. The speaker of Sabevius' ode wounds his friend Telephus. The fate plays with us, Ludumur. However, he encourages not to be afraid of it, because aeternum nihil est, there is nothing eternal. Ehu, Telephe, Ludumur, fortunevo lucri, Ludumur impetu, aeternum nihil est sacro, quid lenta tulit, materies sinu. Sabevius' creative works are based on concepts, allegories, and contrasts. There are many contrasts in this ode, such as there is nothing eternal, instability, and lenta materia, steady substance, stability. Fate plays with humans, controls them, but their wishes determine further. The main allegory is the image of the ball. Like the ball rises up to the sky, so does a man's life has its rises. Then the ball falls down, and so a man has falls in his life. Despite this, one must not fall into despair, for after every fall there will be a rise. Furthermore, in the end of the ode, Sabevius raises rhetorical questions. What is reality? Does it dust our eyes? Precisely eyes are the most important part in this fragment of the ode. This we can see from how the eye is resolved, the whole eye, then the eyelids, finally the white glass. The speaker contemplates whether all people are to some extent blind. He says, fatua palpebra, foolish, unwise eyelids, which may be associated with darkness, therefore with nescience. By closing, eyelids cover the eyes, which see the world, and trap a man in obscurity. On the other hand, it is being doubted whether we truly see the reality. Perhaps the light of reality, as fate does, dust our eyes, which are glass-like, oculi vitrum. Thus, it is no more clear whether we see the reality. We feel discomfited, as we do not know anymore whether reality is a dream, or perchance a dream is reality. Fatorum rapida, ludumur orbita, annos falimur ansuam, rerum pulcher habet, vultus imaginem, et sunt quelitse cernimus, an peccant fatuis, lumina palpebris, et mendax oculi vitrum, an longi trahitur, fabula somnii.
Sabevius in Ode to Janus Libinius reveals individual and socium conflict. Man has two paths, to seek fame or to live quietly and remain unknown. The speaker chooses the second option, which means he lives alone and with himself. Man's image as a house is very popular in modern poetry. The difference is that the modern individual is going through a painful loneliness, and in Sabevius' poetry, human is treasuring loneliness. It is his protection. Is seeking for a fame that bad? No, says Sabevius, but the thin fame is constantly being chased by a rumor, fama. So the fame is being contrasted to envy. The envy arrows knock the fragile bird of glory to the sharp rocks. To avoid such jealousy, you must not chase after one-day fame, and you should protect your morality, individual honesty, decency, virtue, privata virtus. Odi loquacis compita gloriae, plebea quam cum fama faventibus, evexit auris, sepe miso, invidia stimulata, telo, aut invidentum terita vocibus, par obstinatis et male fortibus, dimitit alis illa nudam plangit humum laceroxve saxis. Affligit artus me melius stegat, privata virtus et popularia, numquam vola turum per ora celet iners sine laude tectum.
Serbievius's ode to Publius Monacius is about a very common problem, grief. The poet offers a rational way to grieve, sharing the pain with others. This is what he says. Vires amicis, perdit in auribus, minorque semper dividitur dolor, per multa permissus vagare, pectora nec rediisse quondam. Serbievius teaches us that sorrow must be shared among friends. It must be set free. The poet propagates Stoic morals and ideas. He encourages us to accept our fate and to look at our problems from a different angle. According to Serbievius, powerful trees can be slowly destroyed by a fire, and people can be destroyed in the same way. That is why, in order to escape isolation, we must look to friendship. Pulsus superbit, visa sodalium, cetus et udis sic temere iece, infusus herbarum lacertis ad patrii leve murmur hale. This means that in his ode, Serbievius suggests not only to his friend, but to us as well, that we should grieve rationally. Aurea mediocritas, the golden middle, becomes the most important key to a harmonious life. The birth motive, which was taken from Horatio, is compared to sorrow as it gets smaller while flying away. There's not a single person who can evade their woes. That is why this issue is relevant in all ages. I think everyone must listen to what the poet is trying to say. Olim querendo, desinimus queri, is psoque fletsu lacrima perditur, nec fortis eque si per omnes, cura volat residet queramos.
In the ode to Crispus Lavinius, before our eyes, time stands as the greatest power. The representation of time is hyperbolized, and this creates the dramatic feel. Vive iucunde, metuens juvente, crispe Lavini, fugiunt avare, mensium lune, nimiimque volvi, lubricus aether. This contrast discloses how short the life of a human is. The ode speaks about constant change. The metaphor of a wheel as an embodiment of change shows that there is nothing eternal. The matter dissolves, clothes, gold, and luck and various misfortunes flow by as gushing river. In the face of stormy fate, a human shows himself pitiful. Mobiles rerum, dubiique casus, regna mortalis, tenuere vitae, sedulus mete, properat fugacis, impetus eve. Is the fate of man truly that hopeless? In my opinion, no. Because a human does not understand the divine right, it is hard for him to adapt to the constant change of fate. The one truly happy man is the one who sees the world as some kind of divine right, which is dependent on the higher metaphysical power, and lets the hours as birds fly away in a set time. Omnibus mundi, dominator Horis, aptat urgendas per inane penas. pars ad hoc nido, latetet futuros, crescit in annos. The awareness of human being just a part of the divine right allows to feel the harmony with the world, environment. Moreover, looking through the eyes of man from 21st century, Dominator Horis, Dominator of time, is not only a metaphysical power, as in the Ode of Serbevius, but in the first place a poet, who stops the time with his creation. Therefore, we should remember Horatius, who did the greatest impact to Serbevius' words. Exegi monument, ere perennius. I built myself a monument, steadier than copper.
In Serbevius' ethical ode, dedicated to Paulus Kozlovius, the poet encourages his friend to keep everything in moderation, to divide works of Pallas Athena into equal parts. Unfortunately, nowadays the principle of moderation is often forgotten. Scande mus viridis, terga lucis sii, qua celsa tegitur, plurimus illice, esse praetereuntum, audit murmura foncium. The main idea of the ode is reflected in an isosceles triangle. The base, an idea which is made from the contrast. The other two sides are harmony and disharmony. Harmony is perennial, whereas disharmony is temporary. These sides meet in a point where harmony and disharmony cease to exist separately and are replaced by equilibrium. Auget magna quies, exiguus labor, in maius modico, provenit otio, hinc et terga virentum, late praspice colium. Ergo rumpe moras, et solidum gravi, cure demediem, quem tibi candidus, spondet vespera talbis, cras hore revehente quis. Serbevius' style is not only peculiar because of contrast use, but due to the unity of opposites as well. Exiguus labor in maius modico, provenit otio. The poet tries to convince his friend that a small work gets bigger after a sensible rest. In these words, we can notice that undoubtedly contrasting things, work and rest, are inseparable, each other's cause and result at the same time. The main idea of these strophes is that ignoring surroundings in favor of relentless work brings no benefit. The slopes of green hills broadly survey encourages Serbevius.
According to Serbevius, the world is dominated by God. It is Him who is the master of time, Dominator Horis, and time, in turn, dominates man. However, in reality, the dominator of time is a poet who wins over time with his poetry and thus becomes equal to God.